As we draw closer to another election, I urge each and every one of you to get out and vote. I do not care about how enthusiastic you are about voting, because voting is your duty as an American citizen. And if you voted for Barack Obama in 2008, it makes absolutely no sense that you would want the GOP to take over tomorrow. And if you know someone who is thinking about staying home and not voting, give them a swift proverbial kick in the ass and remind them of all the accomplishments that will be rolled back, or at least halted, if the GOP takes control of at least one house of Congress. Now, if the Republican Tea Party takes over, they will have done so because of their lies. I have no problem with honest debate, but we have not had much of that in the last 2 years, let alone in these months before the election. The GOP wants to continue the Bush tax cuts for the wealthy, and this is an absolute lie that it would create jobs. How on earth would a tax cut for wealthy and large employers create jobs? It just makes no sense. Assuming a business makes a profitable good, that business will produce X goods to meet current demand, and they'll hire Y people to produce those goods. Additional tax cuts for those employers are not going to increase the demand, so therefore the employer will not increase the number of employees they have, because why increase employees if your demand hasn't increased and you don't need more goods produced? The only reason that an employer will increase their employment is if demand increases. The only way to do that via a tax cut is to just extend the tax cuts for the middle and lower classes, giving them more money to spend, thus increasing their demand for goods. And then with an increased demand of goods, employment rises. Now, they'll point to the unemployment rate as another figure, but if you look it up, the unemployment rate is a lagging indicator, which means as the economy gets worse, unemployment rate lags behind and will get worse later. And when the economy recovers, the unemployment rate will still stay bad for a little bit, and then it'll get better. So just keep that in mind when listening to those arguments about the unemployment rate. Now let's look at the healthcare debate. There was a section of the healthcare bill that was discussed, and it actually listed a maximum amount of money that a health insurer can charge you in the form of cost sharing, co-payments, deductibles, etc. Republicans labeled this as rationing and as a death panel for whatever reason. That claim was absolutely debunked. So what did the Republicans do? Did they drop the claim of death panels? No. They moved on and just claimed that something else was a death panel. They claimed that the funding of Medicare so that a patient could get end-of-life counseling, everybody should have a living will, and it helps these people on Medicare, see the benefits of having a living will and perhaps drafting one up, not giving the government control or the doctor control, but allowing the individual to control how they want to treat their end-of-life care. And they called this death panels. That was debunked as well, and then the GOP just moved it on to another thing, and there was death panels. They didn't even say where they were. They just said that the health care bill had death panels. And they have no shame in this, because instead of just dropping it when they were caught with their hands in the cookie jar, they just continue taking out the cookies. They needed the death panel to stick to something so that enough people would believe that this bill had death panels. Now, I guess it worked, but is it good that it worked? No, because you end up with uninformed people. And these people believed it, and now they're out rallying out there saying that there are death panels in your health care bill, when there's not. And then let's look at the mandate. Everyone's railing about the mandate and how the mandate is unconstitutional. Well, the health care bill puts a mandate on health insurance, just like the government puts a mandate on having children and owning a home. Currently, under the current tax code, if you own a house, you will pay less in taxes, all other things being equal, than if you don't own a house, with your deductions. If you have children, all other things being equal, you will pay less in taxes than if you don't have children. And, under this health care bill, the law, if you have health insurance, you will pay less in taxes than if you don't have health insurance. People are arguing that government doesn't have the right or the power to mandate you to have insurance, But what they're doing is they're just giving you a tax benefit for having insurance. And the government absolutely has the power to do that. So don't believe the lies that the conservatives will tell you the mandate is unconstitutional, because it's not. Because all it is a bonus tax break on your taxes if you have health insurance. Period. But let's examine why a mandate is needed in the first place. There's something called anti-selection. Anti-selection, when it comes to health insurance, is the idea that people will wait to buy health insurance until they need it. That's not how health insurance is supposed to work. Insurance, you have it for a long time, and if you need it, you use it. If you don't, you don't. But you just have it there to ensure that you're against a loss. So, but if people have some sort of incentive to wait to buy health insurance, i.e., they don't need to have it immediately, then they're going to wait to buy it. And the way that insurance companies previously handled such anti-selection is to have a pre-existing condition clause, something that the healthcare law eliminates. Now, I don't know any conservatives that are really out there arguing against the elimination of pre-existing condition clauses. They'll say that we have to repeal the bill, but when you question them on pre-existing condition clauses, most of them will say, oh no, those are not good. So, how else, besides a mandate, would these conservatives eliminate anti-selection? Because if you don't eliminate anti-selection, you're really going to bankrupt the health insurance companies, because they cannot afford to just insure people when they need it. They need to have those years of not having to pay out massive claims in order to have a nice pooling effect, in order to make sure that the losses of few don't outweigh the non-losses of the rest of the group. So again, very few conservatives are going to come out there and say, oh, let's get rid of that prohibition on pre-existing condition clauses, but they offer no alternatives to preventing anti-selection. That's the bottom line when it comes to the Republican Party. They're all complaints, but they offer no alternatives. I saw a very good line in a video today that needs to be repeated over and over and over again. People are saying, I remember. I remember all of the things the Republicans did over the last 8 years and what the Republicans stand for. And that's why when I voted early, I remember that, and I voted for the Democrats. Now, you can remember which is the party that says that they want to take us back and which is the party that wants to take us forward. Well, I voted for the party that will take us forward, and I think you should too. Otherwise, who knows what might happen to this country. People, again, like Engel, like O'Donnell, like Rand Paul, and my own Senator David Vitter, with those people in charge of the country, with those people making decisions and passing laws, fighting against a woman to abort without exception, fighting to repeal the 14th Amendment and the Equal Protection Clause, and fighting to protect polluters like BP. Where will our nation be with those type of people in power? It can't be any good. So please, I urge you, get out and vote.